Today, we're talking about Bagan, an incredible ancient city in Myanmar. And when I say incredible, I mean a place where 1,000 years ago, an entire empire was built out of faith and stone.
So take a look at this. This is the Bagan archaeological zone. For centuries, this is what the horizon has looked like, just pierced by the spires of thousands of temples and pagodas. I mean, it's an almost otherworldly sight, right? A landscape completely forged from immense faith, wealth, and power.
Okay, get ready for this number. At its peak, between the 11th and 13th centuries, this plain was home to over 10,000 Buddhist temples, pagodas, and monasteries. Just let that sink in. This was a complete frenzy of religious construction. You had kings, wealthy citizens, everyone was building these monuments to gain spiritual merit. And in the process, they created one of the great wonders of the ancient world. But today? Well, today just over 2,200 of those structures have survived time, earthquakes, and, well, human intervention. So you go from over 10,000 to just over 2,000. And that, of course, begs the question, what on earth happened here? How did this incredible temple empire rise? And maybe more importantly, why did it fall? All right, to really understand the fall, we have to start with the rise. Let's dive into the golden age of the Pagan Kingdom, when Bagan was the absolute center of a thriving empire. Okay, so while the city itself was founded way back in the 9th century, its golden age really kicked off in the mid-11th. For more than 250 years, Bagan was the capital of this incredibly powerful kingdom. And look at this. That 50-year period in the late 12th century, that was an absolute explosion of construction, just an unbelievable burst of architectural and spiritual ambition. And from its heart in Bagan, the empire's reach was just vast. You have to understand, this was the political, economic, and cultural heartbeat that for the very first time unified the regions that we now know as Myanmar. But it wasn't just a political capital. Not even close. Bagan became this truly cosmopolitan hub for learning. The best way to think about it is like an ancient university town, a beacon that drew in scholars from all across Asia. And the studies weren't just limited to religion. The curriculum was incredibly diverse. We're talking Pali scholarship, grammar and phonology, astrology, alchemy, even medicine and law. It was a place just buzzing with immense intellectual energy. But of course, no golden age lasts forever. So what happened? How does this vibrant capital, a city of maybe 200,000 people, just fade away from a metropolis into a relative backwater? And that really is the central mystery here. For centuries, the accepted story seemed simple enough, the classic tale of an outside invasion. But, as it turns out, recent historical research paints a much more complicated picture. So the popular theory, the one you might have heard, points to the Mongol invasions in the late 13th century. But here's the thing. Newer scholarship suggests the Mongols may not have even reached Bagan. A much more likely explanation? An internal collapse. Powerful provincial governors started growing their own cities, turning them into new centers of influence. And the old capital just sort of faded away.
And the result was just dramatic. This once bustling metropolis, a city with hundreds of thousands of people, slowly emptied out. Its influence vanished. Its grand avenues fell quiet. And Bagan, well, it never got that preeminence back.
And just like that, the sun set on the Pagan Empire. The city itself became a pilgrimage site, but attention was really only focused on a few dozen of the most famous temples. Meanwhile, thousands of others were simply left to decay. And that brings us to the modern story of Bagan. It's a story about the ongoing battle to preserve this incredible legacy against centuries of threats, some natural and some, well, man-made.
The challenges have been absolutely immense. I mean, besides just natural decay, the temples have suffered from really inauthentic renovations. We're talking original frescoes just being whitewashed over. But maybe the single biggest threat is geological. Bagan sits right in the middle of a very active earthquake zone. And that threat became devastatingly real in 1975. A massive earthquake just ripped through the region, and it caused severe and, in a lot of cases, irreparable damage to hundreds of these ancient structures. It was nothing short of a catastrophe for the site. This one example really shows you that cycle of destruction and rebirth. So on the left, you're looking at the original Bupaya Pagoda photographed in 1868.
Then, the 1975 earthquake came and completely destroyed it. On the right, you see the modern, gilded pagoda that was rebuilt in its place. It's just such a striking symbol of both the loss and the resilience here. But the path to preservation, it was not smooth. Major restoration efforts back in the 90s drew a ton of criticism for using modern materials and, frankly, paying very little attention to the original architectural styles. It was a controversy that actually delayed international recognition for years. But finally, after decades of hard work and a real renewed commitment to authentic preservation, a huge milestone was reached. In 2019, a full 24 years after its very first nomination, UNESCO officially designated Bagan as a World Heritage Site, and that was just a massive, massive victory for its future. So, where does that leave Bagan today? Well, it's a place where the spirit of a lost empire is still very much alive, but it's facing the challenges of the modern world head-on. I mean, this is the image so many of us associate with Bagan now, right? It's become a major tourist destination where this ancient wonder is meeting a whole new global audience. The challenge now isn't really about rediscovery anymore. It's all about responsible management. And that really leaves us with the crucial final question. See, Bagan isn't some sterile museum. It's a living, breathing landscape of history, faith, and community. So the ultimate challenge is, how do you balance preservation with progress? How do we make sure this incredible heritage survives for generations and generations to come?